10 years later, in 1891, Ellen White sailed for Australia. Unfortunately, she soon fell ill with malarial fever and inflammatory rheumatism. For the next 11 months, she experienced the most terrible suffering of her whole life and became an almost helpless invalid. Yet in the following year, she was able to write,
"These months of suffering have been the happiest years of my life because of the companionship of my Savior. I am so thankful I have had this experience because I am better acquainted with my precious Lord. All through my sickness, His love, His tender compassion was my comfort, my continual consolation."
One reason why she had come to Australia was to help in the setting up of a school. In 1894, she inspected a property of 1,450 acres in Coorambong, New South Wales, and was impressed that this site should be the school location. The land was subsequently purchased and a portion cleared of its huge eucalypt trees. In vision, an angel told Ellen White that though the soil appeared to be poor, rightly worked, it would produce abundant crops. As an expression of her faith, she purchased 40 acres from the estate and began to plan for her own home and the laying out of an orchard. On just 2 acres, over 500 fruit trees of a dozen different varieties were planted, using the method the angel had explained to her. It was said that if Ellen White heard of any fruit tree, vegetable or flower that would not grow in the area, she would plant it, because she believed false witness had been given about the land. Despite the adverse agricultural reports, within 18 months of planting, she was able to describe the fruit from her peach trees in a letter to a friend in South Africa.
"These are the most beautiful in appearance. I have never seen them larger. 2 of them weighed 1 pound. We are seeing the exact fulfillment of the light the Lord has given me, that if the land is worked thoroughly, it will yield its treasures."
In December 1895, Ellen White and her helpers moved into this 11-room cottage, which she later named Sunnyside. It was situated in Avondale Road, Coorambong, not far from the school, and was to be her home until her return to the United States in 1900. It was here that she received many prophetic dreams that helped guide the Seventh-day Adventist Church, not only in Australia, but also in America and in other countries. The Avondale School was to be a pattern school for the educational work of the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Here she met with the school principal and teachers, who were anxious that its operation should be in harmony with the instruction God had given to her. Here at Sunnyside in 1898, she completed her book on the life of Christ, The Desire of Ages. She also cared for her grandchildren here, as well as for other children needing a home.
Thank you. And for you?
Her kind and happy disposition meant that children never felt tense, nervous, or ill at ease in her company.
And one for me, too. Good morning, brother. Morning, Sister White.
It was here, too, that she cared for the needs of the sick in the surrounding district. She often gave food from her own garden and orchard, along with clothing and money, to those in need.
Pull up, Rose. Yep.
On one occasion, a group of local fishermen, grateful for her help, sent Avondale School a crate of fish. The cook, accustomed to serving vegetarian meals, wondered whether she should throw them out. Ellen White responded, "Of course not. Aren't there people in the community who would be thankful for them? Send them the fish with our compliments." She then wrote a letter of thanks to the fishermen for their kindness, expressing her appreciation of the thought behind the gift. Before she left Sunnyside in Australia in late August 1900, a beautiful velvet-bound autograph album was presented to her in the Coorambong Church. The handwritten messages came from churches and individuals expressing appreciation, friendship and love. It also included pictures of churches, portraits of friends and scenes from her Sunnyside home. One page was even reserved for shots of her watchdog, Tiglath Pileser. Ellen White was 72 years old when she left Australia. On the journey to America, she was concerned about where she would find a home. But 2 days before the ship docked in San Francisco, God assured her in vision that he had a refuge prepared for her, where she would have quiet and rest. Within a week of her arrival, she was directed to this furnished 7-room home. It was set at the foot of the hill below the St. Helena Sanitarium in California. To her delight, she found she could buy it for less than she had received for the sale of Sunnyside. The residence was given the name Elmshaven, and it was to be her home for the last 15 years of her life. Ellen White's granddaughter, Mrs. Grace Yarks, recalls those happy times with her grandmother at Elmshaven.
Now, we often had a hot drink for breakfast, postum, sometimes cocoa, which was really just chocolate-flavored milk. We had a lot of milk. A hot cereal, well-cooked, served with cream. Fresh fruit, usually a dish of stewed fruit if it wasn't summertime when we could have fresh fruit. But usually, if it was at all possible, we had fresh fruit from the garden. There was an orchard with peaches, apples, pears, and even persimmons, so that we had fruit through very much of the year. Fruit was one of the main dishes of breakfast. Now, once in a while, we would have an egg for breakfast. So Ellen White herself never gave up the use of milk and eggs. She needed the eggs and milk for protein. Cottage cheese we made. She could not use dried legumes. She was allergic to even lentils. And my mother made the most delicious lentil roast with olives in it. But grandmother couldn't eat it. She just had to watch us enjoy it. She herself could not eat the dried legumes of any type, it seemed. So she would need, you could see, to use as long as possible eggs and milk, but she made sure to see that the milk was scalded so there was no danger from germs in the milk, and also to see that the eggs were from hens that were grain-fed. And everyone was happy. Nothing ever unpleasant at the table, and often some rather amusing things happened at the table. Some was amusing for some people and not for others. I remember one man and his wife was here, and she was pregnant, and she wanted some white bread, and her husband wouldn't let her touch white bread. It had to be this dark graham bread, which is all right, but she wanted some white bread, and he said, "No, you mustn't eat any white bread." So here they were at the table, and sitting at the table, and Ellen White looked around after the blessing, and she said to the lady, she was looking at the bread on the table, and it was dark bread. And she said, "Mrs. So-and-so, would you enjoy a little white bread?" And that's what she'd just been wanting. But her husband said, "No, you mustn't. You must always have entire wheat bread for the nourishment. You must have nourished."